So welcome to Talkin Trades. With me, as always, is the business manager for the Georgia Construction Careers, Randy Beal.
Thank you.
We got a couple of guys here that are going to talk a little bit of real estate, talk a little bit of unions, and welcome, gentlemen. We have Steve in Hamilton. Go by Steve.
Steve.
All right, Vice President of Marketing and Client Relations for Washington Capital, as well as Mathew Beam, who is Vice President of Real Estate. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on Talkin Trades, we like to talk about things that would be of interest to both business managers and people who are in the administration of the locals that we serve, and also the members. And you guys are telling me off air, kind of a little bit about Washington Capital, what it does, how you work with unions, et cetera. Steve, why don't you just sort of tell, just kind of, if I landed from Mars and you needed to tell me what you do, what would it be?
So Washington Capital is a real estate investment firm that was founded on the principles of investing in real estate with union pension dollars and other retirement funds for union members and their families. That's the basic tenet of what we do.
And you guys do you work with locals in this area, or what locals do you generally work with?
We work with the building trades from coast to coast. There are certain markets where we do not have a presence. Atlanta is one of those markets at the moment, and the Southeast. And our goal over the next foreseeable future is to build out that presence, either through new development, new ground-up development, or buying existing assets and properties, renovating them, doing TI work, tenant improvement work.
And Matthew, why did you choose Atlanta? Why this area?
I've been in Atlanta 10 years now doing commercial real estate, both on kind of the debt and equity financing side, also on the kind of acquisitions, asset management side. Got the opportunity to join Washington Capital in April of last year. To Steve's point, heavy concentration of expanding to the South and Southeast, so call it Texas through the Carolinas and Florida. Obviously, I've been in Atlanta, sit in Atlanta, and kind of the thought process was boots on the ground. So having someone with a presence here that sits locally, that understands, the different people who are developing real estate, who own real estate, and just having that really like boots on the ground mentality. And so have been focused on, to Steve's point, looking to buy existing properties here in Atlanta and kind of the Southeast, and then also working with Steve to build relationships with the unions that do sit here in Atlanta and throughout the Southeast, so that we can hopefully, get some more money to invest, but also work with you with the different trades and hopefully on some development projects, and to Steve's point, more hours, and continue to build that relationship here.
Let me say this about right now. Members probably wonder, why am I watching this, right? And it involves their pension money, number one, and it's twofold. One, a business manager and trustees they need to get returns, right?
Correct.
And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about returns. Returns is what improves their pensions and allows the member to retire with dignity and respect and a good pension. But I don't want to gloss over what you said. What's important to the member is also work. If you can't work, can't make hours, you can't get pensions, yada, yada, yada. So you focus on investing in properties that would be built 100% union, if at all possible. Obviously, the highest percent that we can attain, if the craft wants to be involved, they will be involved. And that generates man and women hours in the construction market. Is that what I heard?
Correct. That's right.
So I just wanted to hit that. I mean, this is important. And, for the member out there that may not understand that dynamic, this creates job opportunities.
Right. Yeah. It's the reason why you belong to a union. One of the reasons why is because you do have a pension fund that hopefully is there when you retire, et cetera, right?
Well, you look at all the cranes in downtown Atlanta. You live here, Matt. We probably got 12 cranes in the air right now. And, they're not guaranteed to be union jobs. And most of them are not top to bottom, right? So, this is an opportunity for us as union people to invest in ourselves.
Yeah. And so you guys work on the local level, right? Like you're not working with NAB2 national or international. You're working out on you focus on the local level, right? You work with business managers in local
markets. That's the main thrust of what we do. Now, we do have a relationship with NAB2 at the national level with the folks in D.C. They create a report card every year for a lot of the investment managers in the real estate space.
And what they do is they evaluate those managers in terms of there's a whole host of criteria, and they rank them based on how well or poorly they execute on what they say they're doing. It's one thing to talk the talk, but do you walk the walk?
And they get a 93% scorecard rating out of NABDU. So I wish we could get our congressmen and women to have that kind of rating.
Yeah.
So, they do a great job.
Yeah, for sure. So do you focus on any particular kind of, goals, or like what's your return goals on this for the pension funds, or like how do you determine what projects you take on, and how do you determine that sort of thing to be able to allocate those dollars toward that?
Yeah, do you want to jump in?
I was going to say, more on the real estate side, obviously each kind of pension has kind of their own allocation through the consultant, or kind of how they want to invest. But on the real estate side, from my perspective, lately we've been focused on multifamily and industrial. Obviously, they've been kind of the hotter real estate asset class versus retail or office. Office has its own challenges right now with given the hybrid work or work from home that's been going on. We on the West Coast and in the Northeast, where we have a strong union presence, prefer to do the development deals. To the comment we just made earlier, we can put the trades to work, get them hours, on top of doing a new real estate deal and getting good returns there. Me in the Southeast, kind of focused on existing product right now until we can kind of build the relationships with, the teams here in Atlanta, across the Southeast, and figure out how we can do some of the development deals that may not be 100% union, but hopefully we can do some deals that are, the max percentage union, depending on where the location is. So that's where I've been focused, here in the Southeast, and I think that's kind of how we're focused across the country. We do both existing and development, but the development is kind of the win-win situation where the trades get the hours and they get the return on the real estate side.
I was going over some stuff this morning with the board about, so the nerd thing that I do is like look into real estate and look at, where we're at as far as a occupancy rate, right? What is the vacancy rate is more important. Right now, Class A office space is at 22% vacant in Atlanta. The reason why I look at that is it kind of tells me, in the worst of times in 2008, that crept up to around 30%. That's why you had no cranes in the air. So as that number goes north, you can look for no construction, right? But the projection moving forward for the next 12 months is for that number to drift down. So we know, or I know, looking back over a 10-year data period, when we fall between 19 and 21 or 18 and 21, we will build. That's what happens. And so we're definitely going to have more building if that number creeps down and they do project it. In the multifamily, the occupancy rate is, or they call it, it's basically how many people or tenants have leases signed. It's a different way they look at it. We're at 96%. So there is going to be more multifamily built. That's what I told the board this morning. Interesting enough, when you look at industrial, and I haven't heard y'all say anything about industrial, but these industrial big shell buildings, which we don't do a lot of work in, which we would love to do, the vacancy rate currently is 3.3%. The absorption rate this year was over 149 million square feet. So they're going to build more buildings in industrial. And if we can find out a way to get into that business, we're going to be really, really good. It's a hard business for us to break into.
Hence the reason why this is attractive to you, I guess, this
Absolutely.
market.
I mean, industrial, to your comment, industrial in Atlanta, obviously with the port and Savannah and everything that's kind of being driven from the industrial perspective there, up 16, to 75. That whole corridor continues. Atlanta will continue to be a very popular development spot for industrial, for years to come, especially as that port continues to grow. I mean, if you've been to Savannah lately, I mean, you can't throw a stone any direction without hitting some type of 1 million square foot industrial development. And the same is true about Atlanta. It's more on the outskirts, but you continue to see the development. That pipeline is strong, and I think will continue to be for years to come, just given both the population growth and the growth of the port, which drives a lot of the industrial through Atlanta and the Savannah area.
So something interesting was in that report. It breaks it down. I'm sure you look at this stuff too. So when you go north, when you go into Atlanta, you get them, the vacancy rates are a little higher, 20, 25, 26. We're talking about a composite, but they break it down by region. Right now, near the Atlanta airport, 15%. So I told the board this morning, I'm like, look, that tells me you can't build a high rise by the airport.
Right.
But 5 and 7 story buildings are going to happen right here around the airport. They got to. If there's only 15%, they're going to build. So we got to be ahead of that. So there's just some leads, right? I mean, it's going to happen. If you drift up the northeast corridor up towards Gwinnett, it's like 29%. They're probably not going to build up there. So we need to be ahead of the game on this. And this is what we're talking about. And that's what Matthew's going to do in the local area, is trying to figure out where we can capitalize. And what they need from us is pension money to invest in these projects. And in return, we get returns on investment, but we also get jobs.
So as a former business manager and a current business manager with building trades, well, how do you look at it as from that perspective? What are you looking for? Like,
out of this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. One, just the opportunity. We don't even get much opportunity to bid work. I mean, it's a niche.
Right.
Our contractors have a niche, right? However, if you deliver it to them on a silver platter, here's a job that is going to be union. All you have to do is bid it.
Yeah.
They'll take that, okay, because it's delivered. The other part is just, work and construction hours. We used to say man hours. Now we say construction hours, right? It's construction hours. And I think this is a good time to talk. What I talked to Steve about was we do a good job of doing a minority inclusion on a lot of projects, and even their stuff have it, I'm sure. You have percentage has to have minority inclusion, I imagine, or diversity, correct?
Usually with the sponsors on certain projects, there are requirements in there to that effect.
So one sector of our members that are often forgotten are, I'm going to call them the gray hairs, because I can. I got it in my mustache. You have a little bit too.
Oh, indeed, yeah.
And so, that population gets overlooked because the contractors don't think they can run like the young guys, and they can't. But they have a lot of knowledge, and they're smart. My granddaddy used to say, you take 3 steps, I'm taking 1, we're doing the same thing. I'm getting more done, probably he is. But so I've asked them to look at language that would include looking after that 10%, because what a lot of them are trying to do is get enough hours to get health and welfare so they can retire. Because if you retire without health and welfare, you can't get health and welfare.
Yeah.
So, and they've agreed to at least look at that kind of language, take it up, run it up the ladder, see if it makes sense. And what that would mean is giving those people an opportunity that really don't have an opportunity.
Yeah.
You can imagine that'd be really big for a business manager, right?
Yeah. And so I was just going to ask, so what do you, when you sit down with a business manager, what do you talk about? What are the things that you guys talk about as to why to do business with you versus someone else? The obvious thing being that you use union labor.
Correct. One of the things that we definitely try and tout is our expertise. As Matthew mentioned, you have to have boots on the ground. It's difficult for somebody in LA to figure out the real estate market in Atlanta or DC or Boston. It's difficult. It's a local boots on the ground kind of game. But I think the other value proposition we bring to the table is that if you look at our track record in terms of returns, because let's face it, if you're a trustee, you're a fiduciary. You can't just hire somebody willy-nilly because you like the tie that they're wearing. That's not going to fly. So if you look at our track record in terms of generating strong returns, which some folks say that you can't really do that with the union requirement, we can get to that in a minute, we're generating strong returns for our clients. So if they have an actuarial target of, say, 7.5%, if you look at our long-term numbers, we've done very, very well.
Like 9.93?
Over the last 10 years on an annualized basis.
Yeah,
and that's after fees.
Right.
So when you look at, us compared to other managers, sure, there are some that are going to do better and there are some that are doing worse. But we do have that union advantage, as we like to call it.
Get a strong return and have boots on the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to that point about, well, if you're doing everything union, you're kind of, taking away from the return. Well, if you look at the bigger picture, you've got a very, very skilled workforce. They're highly trained. So as you compare them to, vis-a-vis a non-union contractor and folks that haven't been trained in the same manner, there are less callbacks. And it's been proven, I think, in numerous studies and research, especially with the building trades, projects are done on time and under budget or at budget. So there are other advantages to using union contractors and union men and women in the trades.
With fewer changeovers and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
We were talking to a business manager, Tuesday, about a big project that went non-union. And I said, are you worried about it? They said, no, because they bid it so much further under what it actually is going to take to build it. We'll get that call, and they'll call us to come in and clean their mess up.
You know, when it comes to that cheapest or lowest bid mentality, the analogy that I've begun to use with people is, tell me what kind of car you drive, because I guarantee it's not the cheapest car you could have bought.
Right.
So we all make that decision, whether it's a washing machine or a refrigerator or shoes that you wear or a car you drive. We should be making that decision on the building that you build.
Yeah, you're talking about the difference between the cost to build and the cost of ownership.
Right.
And they work hand in hand. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, if you buy the cheapest of anything, it's probably not built the best. It's probably going to tear up. You know, you got all those things. So, you know, building it with the right people, less callbacks. I'll never forget when I was an organizer with our business rep with sheet metal, I went out to a school and did an investigation on, you know, put a nice white hard hat, nice white shirt, rolled some prints up that didn't even belong to the job, and just walked the job. Nobody will mess with you, by the way, because they think you're somebody special. And
You got a clipboard and a pencil.
Nobody wants to know. So
that.
I'm walking this job and we're finding everything wrong. Everybody knows, a lot of people know what a fire damper is, right? A fire damper comes down in the event of a fire. It's got a fusible link and gravity makes it fall, right? So it stops air movement because air breeds fire, right? There was one of these put in upside down in a stairwell, right? Well, that's really cool. We're going to have our kids running through a stairwell that's on fire. So we built in what we would call a dirty book, right? And took pictures and all this, took it to the school board, and just showed them what they were paying for. Yeah, it was the lowest bidder, 100%. After they got through tallying up how much money it needed to take to fix this, it exceeded the cost that it would have cost just to do it with a good contractor. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. I had work done this week at my house. I had an electric charger put in for the Rivian, and I had a union company do it, right? And in the conversations with him, I'm like, you know, how many times do you go out and do something and you see wires melted together or this? He's like, man, I can't even begin to tell you. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I don't have to worry about that. You know, I don't want to go home and my house be burnt to the ground.
Right.
And why is it this the case? Why do we have to wait for buildings to fall, people to die, houses to burn down before we have legislation saying we should do something? That makes sense, right?
No.
Well, it's the cost of ownership piece. You know, they don't think about that. They think about the cost to build it. They don't always think about the cost of ownership.
Right. Well, another point too, during construction, I know just from, and we all see it, you drive by a job site, you could spot right away when it's a non-union versus a union job just by looking at if somebody's wearing fall protection.
Yeah.
Very simple. I mean, people get hurt all the time on job sites. Unfortunately, some people die. And a lot of times it's just they don't have the training, they don't have the OSHA training and things like that to make it safe. And that's one of and that, again, it gets to the union advantage.
So I'm going to ask you this. I mean, look, I was a trustee of our fund for 17 years, and I think this is important to bring out because it goes back to that ownership and even the car analogy that I like to use. Would you say it would be easier, less obstacles, and more money to be made for Washington Capital to do it in the open market than versus non-union? And here's why I asked that question. I think you've chosen the harder road to make money, but it's a more rewarding road to take. Am I speaking out of turn or?
No. I think you know, you bring up an interesting point. Yes, if we were to just say, yeah, when we build buildings, we'll do it willy-nilly. We don't care who we use as long as it's the lowest bid. One of the things I would highlight is we have a lot of clients that have been with us a long time. Our first client that hired us, actually launched the firm back in the late 70s, is still with us over 44 years later, the Western Washington Plumbers and Pipe Fitters. So, yes, we have sort of a narrow focus in terms of the market and potential clients that we'll go after, but bigger isn't necessarily always better.
Well, and the reason I say that, Rut, is our contractors make the same choice that they're making.
Yeah.
You know, there's a case to be made that they could go get more projects and potentially maybe be a few percentages profit more, right? But they choose to do it with better quality, have a better reputation, create great jobs for great people that can have a retirement. That's a choice.
Yeah.
So Washington Capital's made a choice. That's what I wanted to get to.
Yes.
You didn't have to do it this way.
No.
There's a lot of people not doing it that way. Matter of fact, there's more not doing it than there are doing it with the union labor.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's
Very much
also
so.
probably one of Steve and the client relations team touts this all the time, and I've started to as well since I came on board. But that's one of the marketing tools is that yes, we get a good return, but it's a win-win situation versus some of these other groups who the one focus is return. And yes, if your one focus is return, then you're probably going to go with the lowest cost provider, and lowest cost because it's going to increase your returns. To Steve's point, we're getting a good return. Maybe not as good as the guy next door, but we're putting people to work, the hours, the construction hours in there as well. So
and still getting a return.
And still getting a good return.
Which perpetuates itself, right?
Yep.
Because you get more boots on the ground, which puts more money in the pension, and blah blah blah.
Exactly.
There is a way to do that, and I believe in this. We run a charitable organization here that helps minorities get into the trades. You can do things that are right, help people, and make money. It's possible. It happens all the time. So, that would be my plea to people out there is like give them an opportunity to come to their trustee meetings, to talk to the management side. Management gets it. Sure. If they can get a job, it's about getting both together to agree that it's a good opportunity to get involved.
So if a business manager wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do it?
Well, one, the website, obviously, you can reach Steve and the client relations team there, especially from a trustee perspective. Randy and I talked about this yesterday and a little bit this morning. Me being local to Atlanta, would love to try and help. If we can't find a deal to work on together, at least maybe connect some dots between, developers and the contractors that are looking to, bid out these jobs, and maybe there's a way we can get you in front of some more groups and hopefully at least bid on deals, so work together that way. So I think there's a couple different ways that we would like to try and work with Randy and the different trades here in Atlanta and just across the Southeast in general.
And you have all of your information on the site that you could go to.
Correct. Yep.
And we'll make sure that you have a link on our website too. Before Rut closes out, I know he's about there. I just want to say on behalf of union labor, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you from building tradesmen and women. I know that you'll end up getting some union market here. I believe it. But thank you on behalf of all of them. You're creating jobs. You're helping people get to live the dream, right? And that's not a crazy dream. It's just to have a house and, 2 Rugrats and a car and paying for all of it.
And have something to show.
And have something to show at the end,
the career.
Yeah.
But
thank
safe
you
and
for secure retirement. Absolutely.
100%.
That's the goal. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us.
All right.
And we're out.